You're listening to Mind Over Markets, a podcast on trading psychology to help you build a bulletproof mindset. Here's your hosts, George Papazov and Mark Borscht.
And the reason it's important is if you're away motivated, the challenge with that becomes that if you say, I just want to make more money, and you say, I don't want to be broke anymore. Well, what's broke? Broke is probably the amount of money a year that would pay for your apartment, get you food. You could go out a couple times a night and have a relatively okay time, right? But does that make you happy, right? So congratulations, you're not broke. Are you happy? And so that's where you start to look at towards motivation. So the problem with away motivation is that it's only motivating until you get away enough from the problem that you don't feel its pain. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're anywhere close to where you really want to be. So if you're somewhere where you're having a challenge with your life, great, be away motivated, get away from that challenge and problem 100%. And at the same time, also think, what do you really want? Because that's where you really want to set your GPS and put it on course. So your subconscious mind guides you there. This is great discussion. I'm loving it. Let's go to value number 2. So here's another consideration I want to bring up. Look, being away motivated doesn't necessarily have a direction, right? When you're busy getting away from a certain aspect, that doesn't really mean you're going towards anything. Being away motivated means you're a little bit directionless. And if you're facing a situation where, there's a temporary disorder in your life, that's okay. It's all right to distance yourself from it. And the quicker you can find a direction to head to, the faster you're going to get there. Because while you don't have a direction, you might be headed in a different area that's totally counteractive to what your real goals are.
Exactly. Being away motivated from something is not a direction. It's an escape.
Oh, wow. That's a gem right there. I think that's going to be the quotable for this podcast. I'm predicting it.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But for sure, I 100% agree about that.
Exactly. And another point to be made is that you need to have specific motivations, right? If you don't have a specific motivation, then you could actually end up like our friend Jerome Kerviel, who was a trader from Societe Generale that lost just over $7 billion.
$7 billion. I remember when he made the waves, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah,
like
just over $7 billion. And you know what the craziest part about his story is that at some point he was alleged to have said that all he wanted to do was to become an extraordinary trader. So I'll ask you guys, did he succeed? Would you consider him an extraordinary trader? Maybe not in the way that he had originally envisioned, but he certainly made his rounds across publicity, across the media outlets. And so, to some, that may be considered extraordinary. But do you think that's actually what he wanted when he mentioned that?
I mean, it's extraordinary enough that we know his name, right? Most people probably would have. You probably heard this, and before we told you what he did, you're probably I kind of remember that guy. So in a way, he met his purpose. I mean, I have 2 questions about that. Number 1, where was the risk manager? Number 2, how did he manage to bypass that whole process? It's absolutely mind-blowing, but I will tell you this. That's a very, very good example you bring up, Mark, because if you're not specific in what it is you're asking, the subconscious mind is looking for what? It's looking to get it to you in the fastest way possible. Remember, that was one of the prime directives.
Exactly. That was one of the prime directives. And another one of the prime directives was that the subconscious mind is an efficient order taker. It looks to take orders. It looks for instructions to follow. So whenever you guys, this is one of the things that we mentioned in the 2nd episode and in the 3rd episode, is to always protect what your thoughts are. And in this episode, you're learning why having a specific vision or a specific motivation towards certain values that you have become ever more important towards getting that result that you're looking for. Because like this trader, he wasn't specific enough. And as a result, you can argue that he got what he was asking for.
Exactly. I mean, you're not specific. You're leaving a lot of the variables up to the subconscious mind. And like you said, it'll make the decision that brings it to you the fastest way with the least amount of energy, path of least effort. It's kind of like the story where somebody said, I want to make more money, right? And they found a penny. Did they make more money? I mean, they did.
Technically.
There you go. There's a gift. And now the universe is like, okay, there, I've granted your wish. And now you're like, I want to make more money again. It'd be like, well, you just asked. I gave you more. So you have to really be specific with your goals. And when it comes time to values, your value doesn't have to be, I want to help 6,000 people in the next 12 seconds within it doesn't have to be that specific. But once you know your values and your toward motivations, guess what? It's time to do now. It's time to build something that starts with a G. Goals. It's time to build some goals. All right. And that's where the important aspect is. So I really like this because we're really unwinding and unpackaging this whole conversation to really make it actionable. And so you could drive down and find your motivations, whether they're toward and away. Are we ready to get into the second one, Mark?
We are ready to get into that.
Awesome. Let's drill down into Mark's value number 2. It's sustainability. So Mark, I want to ask you, what's important to you about sustainability?
What's important to me about sustainability? Sustainability means that I can do this for as long as I'm around. Sustainability means that I can continue to provide my family and friends with, I guess, financial abundance, with a legacy, being able to build a legacy, being able to pass this information down to my kids when I have kids, through generations when it's time. That's important to me. Sustainability means that I don't have to be looking for other sources of income. Not necessarily to say that's not what I want, but sustainability means that this is something I can pursue for as long as I'm around physically on this earth. Sustainability also means to me legacy. I don't know if I used that word already.
You did.
Did I? Legacy. Yeah. So legacy, what's important to me is, being able to sustain the wealth I've created and all of that, even when I'm gone. So legacy is pretty important to me as well, as far as sustainability is concerned. And I'd say that's pretty much what I can get off the top of my mind without really doing much thinking and shifting my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, those are very congruent. Those are the ones that came out from the subconscious level, right? I just want to let you guys know that are listening to this podcast, this is not rehearsed. Mark and I, this is the first time we're doing it, which is great. And it puts a little bit of pressure on Mark. And also I know from, I know when he's digging into his deep down subconscious well, and when he's trying to make up answers logically. So far he hasn't, which is great. And he just told me, he's like, look, that's all I have. From now I'm going to start thinking. He broke out of the flow, right? So as long as I'm around, like, would you mind explaining or expanding what that means, Mark? One of the things you said was as long as you're around.
As long as I'm around. Yeah. So as long as I'm around, just basically means that I can continue to provide for my family, for my friends, basically to be able to give them what they need and sustain a life while I'm on this earth.
That's awesome. That's very beautiful. I was just curious. And I'm going to ask you this, Mark. Have you been doing some self-development work since? I mean, if you think about when was the last time you did your values until now, you've clearly done a lot of self-development since.
Yeah. Read a lot of books, thanks to the great guidance I have here from George. So definitely been working. That's been one of my biggest goals. Funny that we mentioned that. That was one of my biggest goals for the last year was
the G word.
Exactly, the G word. One of my biggest goals over the last year was to focus more so on my own personal development and self-growth, and to kind of reflect on, the values elicitation we did. I've done that about 1.5 years ago. Now we've revisited that. I've done outside of the career one, I've done them all again, as far as health and relationships, fitness, family, etc. And I have a good idea of what I'm working towards, and I'm working towards getting to a 10 in each of those categories so that I can reset again and level up.
10 to 1.
Exactly, 10 to 1.
That'd be a great personal development company name, by the way. 10 to 1. If any of you guys start that, I want you to know I'm coming for 10%, but just 10. So this is good. The reason, why do you think I asked you that, Mark? Do you have any idea? Because I'll tell you, I'm asking too many questions.
Can't read minds anymore.
Curious George over here. So, because I'm looking at all these, and all these are towards motivated. This is great. And it looks like somebody who's, really put a lot of work into developing themselves, and at the very least have been reflective enough to know where you're at, taking an inventory of your current situation and thinking about where you want to go. And because they're all towards motivated. If you haven't ever thought about where you want to go and where your destination and purpose is, you tend to not have as many toward motivations. So this is good. And I can also tell you, Mark, through our interaction over the last couple of months, I also noticed your linguistic patterns have changed. The way you're talking, you're more framing things in a towards motivation. Heck, sometimes when I slip, because it happens, I'll say some away motivated stuff. You'll reframe me. They're like, don't you mean this? Which is great, man. It's an amazing journey we're all developing. That's awesome. You want to do value number 3?
Yes, sir.
Ready for it?
We'll say the grasshopper is slowly becoming the master.
Oh, yeah. Hey, do you remember what I saved you as on my phone before? I want you to read this.
Bank Mark?
Yeah, it was Scotiabank Mark. That's where I met him. All right. And I remember I changed his name.
It's a true story, guys. Episode number 1.
Yeah, exactly. If you revisit episode 9, number 1, you'll know how we met. So I saved him as Mark Scotiabank because that's where he worked. Now look what I have him saved as. Read that, Mark.
Hey, Mark Master Mindset, and then my last name.
Triple M.
Triple M. I like it.
So it's good. You've done a lot of work, and I'm very proud of it.
Thanks for listening to the Mind Over Market podcast. You can find us at TradeProAcademy.com.